First item of business is to go through the multiple item speaker cards. And we have two individuals, Herman. Herman.
Now that we're on item 10, folks, dealing with revoking the invalidate of all approvals of bad credit issued in support of this project off of South Kenmore Avenue, I just want to know and reflect upon the record that Herman Jason Wesson defaulted on his fucking credit cards. So that has a lot to do with community impact statement, which I'm submitting for the record. Shove this big banana up Herb. In addition to that, folks, to tell you about Mitchell Englander, the Dibble-dwarf up there, he has an item as well.
Mr. Herman, your
item 8.
Herman, I'm talking. Let that be your first warning. If you do not listen again, you're going to be asked to leave. Sir, do not harass anybody up here. Do not say. If you. Sir, can you ask this individual to leave, please? Thank you. And I asked you to listen and to cooperate in talking, and if you did not do that, I'm sorry. Next speaker is Wayne. Wayne? Okay, Wayne, you could go now, Wayne. You're up, Wayne. You're in. Could start his time, please? Thank you.
I pay my credit card debts. I ain't no goddamn bitch. So we got number 1. Go ahead, Mr. Puppet. Fuck number 1. Thank you. All right, let's get to number 2, more corruption. Number 2. Park Westchester Business District, fuck you. Good. 3. Fuck number 3. Thank you. 4. Fuck number 4. Okay, that's very good. Number 5, what about that? Oh, that's in Mr. Credit Card's district, right? Yes, number 5, we're accepting any bribes because Herb Wesson needs a lot of money to pay off his Discover card and his 2 mortgages. So if you want this project, please go to the 4th floor and have an unmarked bag and place unmarked currency, non-consecutive, underneath the door, and then you'll get your project approved. That's no bullshit, huh? No. It's a pay-to-play city. So that's why we're here. We're here, the puppets. You're here to pay off, and they're here to vote yes. And they're going to vote yes unanimously, no matter what the fuck you say, no matter who you know. You know why? Because they've got all the power. See the cop over here? He'll shoot you right in the fucking head if you mention that Jose Huizar's wife is a cunt. Be careful.
Wayne, let that be your... Wayne,
what?
I'm going to tell you right now,
I'm trying to
whether it's my wife or anybody else's wife, that has nothing to do with the purview of this meeting. If you continue to use...
She's an elected official.
Can I speak? Can I speak?
She's a public official.
I gave you one warning. If you speak again, I'm going to ask you to leave. Sir, do not use abusive language towards anybody. It has nothing to do with the conduct of the business here. We're conducting business here. So, sir...
And you put her into the public
sir,
eye.
Mr. Chair, I can't hear you speaking because this person continues to speak
Can you remove
over.
this individual as well, please? Thank you very much. Sir, you could speak about anything that has the purview of land use and management or the city. Being abusive to any individual at this committee or the full city council has nothing to do with the conduct of our business. Thank you very much. We will move on. So we will now move on to our consent items. And let the record show that this individual continues to obstruct this meeting. For the record, for future efforts to keep this individual from coming back to these meetings. Okay, we will go on with this meeting. For those of you who are attending these meetings for the first time, these two individuals come to every council meeting, to every committee meeting in an attempt to disrupt it. We have been advised that they have broad latitude in terms of the First Amendment, so if any language they used offended you, we apologize. We continuously ask these individuals to not abuse anybody, to not use foul language. It is quite disappointing that we often have young people attend these meetings and have to see democracy in this manner, but being that as it is, we do this at every committee meeting. Our apologies. We will now go through the agenda items. First item on the agenda is item number 2, which I believe we can take on consent. Any objection to taking item number 2 on consent? Okay, item approved. Item number 3, we'll move on consent. Any objection? Seeing none, we'll approve item number 3. Item number 4, any objection to approving that item on consent? Seeing none, so ordered. Item number 5, we'll approve that on consent. Any objections? Seeing none, so ordered. Item number 7, we'll approve that item on consent. So ordered. Item number 8.
Councilmember
Yes.
Huizar, sorry to interrupt. For item number 7, I understand the appeal was withdrawn. Is the recommended action to deny the appeal insofar as it was withdrawn?
What's the action? So I wasn't aware that it was asked to be withdrawn. Yes, we'll do that, as we'll incorporate your language into that action. Thank you. Okay, item number 8 was on consent. We have 4 speakers. We'll hold that item. Item number 9, we will continue to August 28th without objection. Item number 10, we will receive and file. Any objection? Seeing none, so-
Councilmember, for item number 10, there are required actions by the writ of mandate to revoke the approvals as laid out in the court's ruling. So that can be taken on consent if your recommendation is to take the actions as advised by the court, or as instructed by the court.
Yes. We'll take that action, incorporate your comments into our action, but we could still receive and file with your instructions, correct? Yes.
The city attorney report can be received and filed.
Yeah, okay. Any objections? Seeing none, so ordered. Item number 1 is a report from Director of Planning, Mr. Vince Fortoni. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair Huizar, members of the committee. Vince Bertoni, Director of Planning. Just real quick, one item. In the last few weeks, the department's been having scoping meetings for environmental impact reports regarding some transit-oriented planning that we've been doing. Most specifically, the Valley's Orange Line Transit Neighborhood Plan held a scoping meeting on Wednesday, July 25th, and that's focused on potential for development near Orange Line stations along Sepulveda, Van Nuys, and North Hollywood. Also, the same week on Thursday, July 26th, we had another environmental impact report scoping meeting for the Purple Line on the west side of Los Angeles, and those were for stations that are under construction at Wilshire La Cienega, Wilshire Fairfax, and Wilshire La Brea. So this is just the very beginning of the process in terms of this is the part of the process where before we would prepare an environmental impact report, we listen to people who are interested and listen to them in terms of things that they want to make sure the city studies as part of the EIR. As we go through the process, there will be multiple opportunities to give opinions in terms of how those plans should be shaped and what should be included with them. So this is just the beginning of the process for the 2 of those, and ultimately those plans will go to our City Planning Commission for recommendation and up to the City Council for adoption. That concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Seeing none, we will receive and file item number 1. Thank you for the report, Mr. Bertoni. Item number 12, if we could call that to order, Mr. Mejia.
Sure. Councilman, item 12, this is a Planning Commission report. It's a general plan amendment, an investing zone change for a mixed-use project with 379 units located in CD 14.
Thank you. Is staff here for a brief presentation?
Good afternoon. My name is Mason Wilson, planning staff. The project that's before you today is for a site located at 1100 to 1146 South Main Street for a proposed 8-story building with 379 dwelling units and approximately 25,810 square feet of commercial floor area. At its meeting on April 12, 2018, the City Planning Commission approved entitlements related to the reduction of open space as well as site plan review, and also recommended adoption of a general plan amendment to Regional Center Commercial as well as a vesting zone change and height district change to TQ-C24D, which is before you today. I'm available for any questions if you have any.
Okay. Anyone else? Thank you very much. And we will now turn to public comment. On 12, Rena Letty. Who is the applicant here? Okay. Who signed up to be the applicant? You should know that, Mr. Tanner.
And I relied on his advice, council member. Forgive the slip up on that. I'm Bill Delvac of Armbruster, Goldsmith, and Delvac, here on behalf of the applicant Frontier Holdings and Jade Enterprises. I would like to introduce Daniel Taban, who will say just a few words, and then I'll make a few brief remarks.
Good afternoon, City Council members. I am Daniel Taban of Jade Enterprises, a private real estate investment and development company that was founded in the Fashion District over 35 years ago. We are not land speculators or merchant builders, rather long-term investors who take pride in the projects we design and construct. We have been working closely with the city and neighborhood groups for the past 2 years to bring this high-quality housing and retail project to downtown Los Angeles. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Again, for the record, Bill Delvac on behalf of the applicant. I just want to touch on a very few things and then discuss a letter we submitted with some requested changes. This project is unlike other ones nearby in that it creates a 4,000 square foot mid-block plaza open to the public, publicly accessible. There's also 840 square feet of covered seating area and another 900 square foot corner plaza. The downtown design guide that's applicable to this project would allow a 50% reduction in open space. However, this project is only seeking a 10% reduction. Sustainability. The project includes a 2,000 square foot solar panel. It will include 20% EV ready and 5% EV chargers. I do want to note about the parking. The plan is to provide 45 segregated spaces in addition to the on-site requirements for an adjacent building that has no parking. We're providing affordable housing. In discussions with stakeholders and others, we're asking the council to modify the income levels to moderate, which would improve the jobs housing balance. So on the specifics, queue conditions, Q2B requires the plaza to be open from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. 7 days per week. This is not in keeping with the other open space in the downtown area. San Julian Park, Pershing Square Park, Spring Street Park, Los Angeles Park either close at sundown or sometime thereabout. We request that the condition regarding the publicly accessible plaza be changed to be a minimum of sunrise to sundown. I noted that we were asking for the change on the low-income units to moderate, which we believe will help the jobs housing balance. The condition regarding vegetation and landscaping has an additional condition of using all gray water to the extent feasible and in consultation. This condition is an unreasonable project cost, and we ask the council to eliminate it. Now, I want to spend just 1 minute on the EV chargers. As this committee knows, the City Planning Commission often looks at code spaces not required for on-site as code additional, and therefore, on occasion, requires all of those to be not just EV ready, but EV chargers. In this case, the 45 spaces are being provided for a building that has no parking. If the commission's condition is allowed to stand, it would result in an overall project of 15% of all spaces being EV chargers. It seems like we're penalizing doing something good for the neighborhood, which is providing the parking. I'd like to note in closing that the project has support of key downtown stakeholders and has no opposition. The project represents good urban design, including publicly accessible open space. We'd like to thank the staff for all the hard work and excellent presentation. We respectfully urge you to approve our project with requested changes. And team and I would be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Delvec. You submitted a letter outlining the proposed changes you suggested.
On July 27th.
Also, and thank you. And I believe there's been some discussions as well that the applicant has agreed to additional conditions, one of them being a $1 million contribution to the CD14 Public Benefits Trust Fund to improve infrastructure and other issues around the area, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Item public comment, Rena Letty, Josh Krieger, Marie Rumsey, and Carl Piros. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Rena Letty, the Executive Director of the Fashion District Bid. We're extremely excited for this project. We like the idea that it's bringing a multi-use project that's bringing a variety of housing options to the Fashion District, public space, of which we have virtually none in the 100 blocks that we manage. So we're very excited about that. And we're also excited to see an upgrade to some of the street level retail that's currently there. The neighborhood on that part of the district could use a little love, and we think that this project is going to do just that. So thank you. We're in full support.
Thank you.
Josh Krieger, representing the South Park Business Improvement District. This project is actually right across the street from our boundary line. The developer has been fantastic in reaching out to us and presenting to our board and getting our input on the project. They've done a number of projects both in our district and around downtown, and have always been wonderful with the neighborhood and reaching out to find out how they can fit in with the neighborhood. This particular location is an area that has suffered from a lack of investment for a long time, and it's just recently started to get some new investment. But there's really a need for high-density residential. It's a perfect place for transit-oriented development, mixed use. Having more retail space will be really important in getting more pedestrian traffic. 11th Street in particular is a stretch that we're really trying to make a pedestrian corridor connecting LA Live to the Broadway corridor and then into the Fashion District. So we urge you to support this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Marie Rumsey, and I'm here on behalf of the Central City Association. We are a membership organization committed to increasing downtown's vibrancy, and I'm here to state our strong support for this project located at 1100 South Main Street. We are really excited that it's going to bring new residential units to downtown, and many of those are going to be affordable housing. We are also very excited about the 4,000 square foot public plaza. We ask that you support this item today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Carl Piros. I manage the downtown office of Industry Partners. We're a commercial real estate brokerage. We specialize in creative tenants. We've been lucky enough to bring about 100 tenants into Los Angeles over the last 7 years from other municipalities. One common thing about all these tenants is they need a lot of parking, especially entertainment, fashion, and media that are big growth centers for the city. I represent the Harris Building, 110 West 11th, across the street from this project. The building is built with no parking. We've been pretty successful in our leasing, but we certainly need this additional parking, so I'm very much in support of this project and its proposed parking. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes public comment. And let me start by saying that this is what I believe is yet another great development coming to the South Park neighborhood, and it continues the growth in that area and to provide much-needed residential housing and additional economic activity in the area. With that, are there any other questions or comments from committee members? Seeing none, I'd like to move to approve this project with the following instructions. 1, amend the conditions of approval consistent with the changes requested by the applicant in their letter dated July 27th, 2018. Require that the applicant provide $1 million to the CD14 Public Benefit Trust Fund for future affordable housing, homeless services, transportation, or streetscape improvements or other public serving community benefits within CD14. A minimum of $250,000 shall be paid no later than 6 months following the end of the entitlement's appeal period. Planning amend the conditions of approval such that all conditions are consistent with those amended by this committee and adopted by City Council. Any questions or comments on that? Seeing none, we'll approve without objection. Thank you very much. Item 11, we could call that to order, please, Mr. Mejia.
Sure. Item 11, Councilman, this is a report from the Planning Department relative to freeway adjacent development projects and recommendations.
Thank you. Staff here?
Yes. Good afternoon. Claire Bowen, Department of City Planning, Senior City Planner with the Department's Urban Design Studio. As you may recall, the Department presented information on the issue of freeway adjacency and air quality concerns at your April 17th meeting. At that meeting, the Department laid out 5 strategies to reduce exposure to mobile source emissions and a 6th strategy aimed at reducing mobile source emissions. At that meeting, this committee directed planning, along with the Departments of Building and Safety and Housing and Community Investment, to compile additional information regarding the 6 strategies. Today, I am pleased to be joined by colleagues in the Departments of Building and Safety and Housing and Community Investment to provide you with the results of the conversations that we have collectively been engaged with these past few months. In the interest of organization, I'll discuss each of the 6 strategies in the order they were presented in the reports. The first item pertains to the subject of Merv Filters. Merv stands for Minimum Efficiency Reporting Value, which rates the effectiveness of air filters. In 2016, the city established a requirement that going forward, new mechanically ventilated buildings within 1,000 feet of a freeway would need to utilize a filter with a MERV 13 rating. The effectiveness of these filters diminishes if they are not regularly replaced. To ensure that filters are routinely replaced, residential buildings that are subject to the Systematic Code Enforcement Program, known as SCEP, that is administered by the Housing and Community Investment Department will be identified so that the housing inspectors can verify that the filter requirement is being complied with during their routine SCEP inspections that occur once every 4 years. A memo from the Housing and Community Investment Department outlining this new inspection effort is attached as an exhibit to our report. Robert Gallardi, the Chief Inspector from HCID, is also here with us today should you have any other questions. The second item pertains to the establishment of a freeway-adjacent use package in the zoning code update. The department will be exploring opportunities to address freeway proximate concerns in the new zoning code. But as the application of the new zones will take place over the next 6 years as each community plan is updated, the department is including design guidelines in the update to the zoning information number 2427 to address this issue on an interim basis. And I will touch more on this issue under item 5. The third and fourth items pertain directly to the zoning information number 2427. In response to these 2 items, the ZI is being modified to expand to all projects within 1,000 feet of a freeway that are seeking discretionary action, while also streamlining the implementation of the ZI to eliminate the requirement for health risk assessment, which provided limited added value. The revised version of the ZI will also highlight additional general plan policies from the Plan for Healthy Los Angeles that acknowledges the value of incorporating a health perspective into land use practices and the need to reduce exposure to noxious activities. The updated ZI will also include reference to the MERV 13 requirement that was mentioned in the first item, so as to ensure that new developments are aware of this relatively new building code section. The fifth item pertains to the development of a healthy building design guidelines as a means of promoting building and site design solutions to improve health outcomes. Earlier this month, on July 12th, the City Planning Commission concurred with the department's initiation of an update to the existing citywide design guidelines, and further concurred that it would be valuable to include healthy building design guidelines into that update. As that update will begin over the next several months, the department is including new conditions and design strategies into the revised ZI for projects within 1,000 feet of a freeway that are seeking discretionary action. The conditions and design strategies would, one, encourage play areas, patios, and balconies to be located as far from the freeway as possible. Two, that non-habitable space, such as parking structures, be located in the areas nearest the freeway. And three, that vegetation and a wall barrier be included to screen the project site. The sixth and last item pertains to the role that electrical vehicle charging equipment can play in building out EV infrastructure and thereby encouraging the shift from gas to electric-powered vehicles. Electric vehicles are typically zero emission and therefore contribute to the state's efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Since 2010, the city has taken a leadership role in establishing EV charging requirements for new development projects. Following the discussion at the last Plum meeting, the city has convened ongoing meetings between the Mayor's Office, the Department of Building and Safety, the Department of Water and Power, and the Department of City Planning to discuss EV charging requirements, the capability and the potential for EV wiring to be standard in parking stalls beyond the 20% EV adaptable and 5% installed charging stations that the City Planning Commission is currently imposing on new projects. Should you have any questions on this particular item, representatives from the Department of Building and Safety are also here with us today. So in closing, I would just turn your attention to several items we've included on the report for your consideration, and we represent the following actions to be considered by your committee. Direct our department to establish the freeway adjacent use package in the Recode LA, to publish the proposed revisions to the ZI number 2427, and to report back on progress in updating the citywide design guidelines in regards to the goals contained in this report. We've also suggested that you direct the Department of Building and Safety to pursue an update to subsections, I'm not sure I want to read all the numbers now, 9, they're in the report, and to establish an EV-ready and EV charging requirement that exceeds current state standards and recognizes the importance of EV in the city and addresses the minimum targets referenced in this report.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much for your work on this and for the department's work on this. Colleagues, if you recall, we heard this item right before recess, and we asked the planning department to put more specifics into the recommendations. We needed more clarity on the actions so that we could take action on this. I believe the recommendations before us today will allow us to better consider the risks of air pollution when development is proposed near freeways. And I think we've come a long way, but I'm pleased that these further details, we are now ready to move forward with this. Particularly excited about the item that will ask anyone with a discretionary application within 1,000 feet of freeway will get information and guidelines to help protect the health of residents, and we will take particular precaution for those most susceptible to air pollution by specifically discouraging the siting of schools, daycare facilities, and senior care centers near the freeway. And we will encourage, as was just mentioned, vegetated barriers or walls and other things that would help with air quality as well. The action on EVs is something that's important to us. During the past year and a half, since we first introduced this motion, it has taken a two-pronged approach, as was mentioned. One was to reduce exposure to pollution, and two, to reduce pollution itself. And what we're doing today, we will instruct Building and Safety to codify expanded requirements for electric vehicle readiness and EV charging stations as part of building parking, as was just mentioned. So I want to thank staff for all their hard work in this. This has been a long time coming, and I think this strikes a balance between the needs for development and protecting property rights, while at the same time addressing the issues of public health, clean air, and sustainability. So thank you very much for all your work on this. Are there any questions on this? Seeing none, we'll move this item and approve the recommendations let me read some of those. I move to approve the July 20, oh, we do have public comments, right? Okay, let's go to public speakers first. Christopher Chavez and Mark Carrell.
Good afternoon, members of the Plum Committee. My name is Chris Chavez, representing the Coalition for Clean Air. First, CCA thanks the staff for including us throughout this process. While this proposal is an improvement over current requirements, the gold standard remains that no residential development occurs within 1,000 feet of a freeway. However, I will say we are particularly pleased with the recommendation of electric vehicle charging infrastructure being part of this plan. One thing I will mention, though, is that the larger issue that still needs to be addressed are the thousands of existing structures currently around freeways. Older housing is largely the only affordable option to low-income and people of color. These people are particularly vulnerable, these communities are particularly vulnerable to air pollution due to long-standing health and socioeconomic inequalities. CCA looks forward to continuing to work on this issue with the city and on other important issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mark Carrell. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Mark Carroll. I'm President and CEO of Breathe LA. We are an organization focused on clean air and lung health, and this we are ambivalent about this proposal because we believe these additions would be important for existing projects that are currently next to freeways as they get improved. But we still believe, and we have believed for some time, that there should not be residential development within 500 feet of a freeway. Recommendations from CARB, recommendations from AQMD provide guidance on this. And basically, it's putting secondhand smoke, which now HUD has prohibited in all public housing projects. You're putting essentially the same toxic chemicals coming out of secondhand smoke come out of the exhaust from vehicles, and essentially you're putting people in harm's way living in secondhand smoke. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, we'll move to, I will move to approve the July 26, 2018 Planning Department recommendations as follows. 1, instruct the Planning Department to establish a freeway adjacent use package in the Record LA effort. Publish revisions to zoning information file number 2427 guidelines that address the location of schools, daycare facilities, and senior care centers within 1,000 feet of a freeway. Report on the progress to update the citywide design guidelines in regards to the strategies goals contained in the report. 4, instruct Department of Building and Safety with assistance of City Attorney to prepare and present an ordinance to update subsections of the building code to establish an EV-ready and EV charging requirements that exceed current state standards and recognizes the importance of EV in the city and addresses the minimum targets referenced in the July 26, 2018 Planning Department report. Without objection, so ordered. Thank you. Item number 6.
Item 6, Councilman, this is a report from the Planning Commission and an appeal also by Susan Hunter. Relates to a vesting tentative tract map for 221 residential condo units in CD 13 and 19%. 11% of the units are very low-income units.
Okay. Thank you. We'll start with a brief presentation from staff. Welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Nuri Cho with City Planning. The item before you is a second-level appeal of a vesting tentative tract map for the merger of 8 existing contiguous lots and a strip of excess public right-of-way along Hoover Street and re-subdivision to create 221 residential condos in the Wilshire Community Plan and Vermont Western Specific Plan areas. There is a related DIR case for the proposed project involving the demolition of an existing vacant hospital and the construction of a 5-story multifamily residential complex with 221 dwelling units, including 19 very low-income units. Both tract map and DIR cases were appealed to the City Planning Commission, who denied the appeals and sustained the director and advisory agency's decisions. The CPC decision on the DIR case was final. The appeal points for this map appeal are related to the open space and park requirements in the city's general plan and zoning code and state law, compliance with the Vermont Western Specific Plan, conflicting project description in the determination letter, and significant environmental impacts. In response to the appeal points, staff would like to clarify that the map approval is contingent upon the approval of the related DIR case, which found that the proposed project is in full compliance with the city's open space requirements, as well as the Vermont Western Specific Plan. The project is not subject to the state's parkland requirements as it is a private development. The project description in the determination letter is accurate and correct, and all potential environmental impacts will be mitigated to less than significant levels per the initial study and an MND prepared for the proposed project. Therefore, staff recommends denial of the appeal and sustained the CPC's decision to approve the vesting tentative tract map. I'm available for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now go to public comment and to the appellant, Susan Hunter. Sure, our Sergeant at Arms will get those from you and submit them to the city clerk.
Susan Hunter, I'm with the Coalition to Preserve LA, and I'm here today in the hopes that the Plum Committee will come to the same conclusion that the proposed project, titled Pinnacle 360, is not a suitable use for the land that they want to develop it on for the following reasons. The proposed project is too large for the project site. That is why the Planning Department has decided to gift the developer part of Hoover Road in order to make the project fit. The project is so large, the surrounding property has to be modified around the project. The road is not being vacated equally to the benefit of all adjacent property owners. The project is over density prior to applying the density bonus. It is unclear why they're asking for a vesting tract map for condos when the building permit application states apartments. New condo-only construction does not allow for the application of density bonus. If the developer is asking for density bonus, they can't be permitted to do a vesting tract map for condos. The developer has only done soil sampling to test for the consistency of the soil, which in their own findings, the soil does not meet the legal requirements to build a proposed project on. The soil is a mixture of rocky and soft. Soil needs to be fully one type or the other. The developer has not done soil sampling to test for contamination associated with older hospital usage. There is a high likelihood of hazmat and radiation contamination due to the age of the hospital and the practices of the correlating time periods for burying or incinerating hazmat materials. The area sits in an above average vacancy rate. The community does not need market rate housing, they need parks. This area is considered park starved by the city, as cited in the previous open space element, as well as the proposed open space element of the general plan. The city has a unique opportunity to put into practice a land trade. Under the standing open space element of the general plan, due to the proposed project not being appropriate use for this parcel of property, the city can trade city-owned parcel for the developer-owned parcel. The city would also be allowed to use funds to create the land trade from the Parks First Fund, which is prioritized over Quimby for this neighborhood due to the Vermont Western Specific Plan. The Plan Department will state that there's a housing crisis across the city of LA. It was within their scope to deem it necessary to allow this oversized development in an area of LA with a high vacancy rating. The housing crisis is also a nationwide crisis, yet the Planning Department acknowledges that they can change their scope to look at averaging throughout the entire city, that one part of the city affects the other. What the Planning Department refuses to acknowledge is the gentrification that is associated with a luxury development being forced into a working class neighborhood. The Planning Department states gentrification is also a citywide and nationwide issue, so therefore it is outside of their scope. So either the Planning Department doesn't have the right to push this development through because the actual needs of the community means they don't need this development, or because the department has failed to analyze the impact on housing in the area by allowing the introduction of market rate housing into a below market rate area. The department does not get to separate out the two issues just because it's not convenient for the narrative that the developer wants. Gentrification goes hand in hand with market rate housing developments. The impact of introducing this market rate housing into this area must be analyzed. And in fact, in 2015, there were only 4 districts that had a vacancy rate below 5%. With 5% being a healthy average of housing availability, this means that the city overall has plenty of housing. And in fact, averaging the above average vacancy ratings from the other 11 districts means we do not have a citywide housing crisis. The areas that are in most need of housing units are in the northern parts of the valley area. What Rampart Village needs is park. This area of Rampart Village is park-starved. This location is a perfect example to do a trade of land. On top of that, the size of this project is an issue. The project is already applying multiple density bonuses before applying the actual density bonus. And in fact, the project is so large that the planning department has decided to give part of a taxpayer road to a developer in order to make the surrounding land try to fix the development. This is the opposite of planning. They are deciding which property owner gets to benefit from the vacating of the road. And what is most concerning is that the developer has only conducted a visual inspection to look for soil contamination. They have not done due diligence to actually look for contamination in the soil before putting housing units on there that can make people extremely sick, including different types of cancer. They are unable to produce a contract from the 1920s to the 1940s showing any type of hazmat services to remove hazmat material from the site and to be safely disposed of. In those time periods, it was common to bury or incinerate. The developer is terrified of telling the truth, that the only contamination tests that have been done was to look for signs of oil spillage around elevator shafts or patches of brown grass. They only visually looked. You cannot determine carbon level contamination by looking at the soil. They're going to come up here and say, we have tested the soil, there's no contamination. Ms. Hunter needs to look at the environmental documents. Well, I have looked at those documents, and they still have not physically pulled any soil samples. We need to learn our lessons from the Exide plant in Jordan Downs. It's the taxpayers who ultimately had to pick up the tab for our sick residents because we just didn't want to acknowledge that the ground does not always agree with our development strategies. It is more logical to trade the city-owned property in the North Valley areas of Sylmar, Granada Hills, and Porter Ranch. And that's why I propose a land trade for the southernmost part of O'Melvery Park, which is a city-owned lot, which would be a perfect size for this project. If the consensus is to allow this development to move forward, we must provide a full EIR as well as additional soil samplings to test for contamination associated with hospital usage. Also, it's within 500 feet of a highway. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. For the applicant, I believe it's either Tina Choi or Amy Applicat. Okay. Are you the applicant?
Yes.
What's your name, sir?
Yeah, good afternoon. Alex T. Good with the law firm of Cox, Castle, and Nicholson, Land Use Counsel for the project.
Okay.
Thank you for the opportunity to respond. I'm not going to, belabor the points. City staff has done an excellent job if you read your reports of responding to all these appeal points. None of these are well taken. City Planning Commission unanimously denied this appeal. I will hit a couple points very quickly. First, the issue of a land trade, we're not even quite sure what that means, but the project is a standard vesting tentative track map. There's a little strip of excess city right-of-way that is getting merged into the project, which is a very common practice. Hoover Street will still be wider than is required under the mobility plan. Hoover Street will be completely reconstructed. It's currently in utter disrepair at that location. As a result of this project. I'll briefly address the so-called environmental contamination issue. The appellant is not correct. There was a phase 1 and a phase 2 done for this site. That's in the project, in the MND. There was soil sampling done to test for contamination. This was a former hospital site. That soil sampling all came back clean. That is all very clearly laid out in the phase 2 that is part of the MND. So I don't really know what more to say about that. The site has been examined and tested quite thoroughly. Condo versus apartment. This is going to be an apartment project. Yes, it's a condo map, but as you well know, you can have a condo map that then is apartments. Yes, the applicants filed building permits already for an apartment project. Other comments made were really sort of more planning questions. This is a track map appeal. Those aren't really before you as part of a track map appeal, but the suggestion, I think, that we don't need a housing and we don't need the provision of more affordable housing in the city of LA. I don't know who, maybe other than the appellant, would make that argument. We certainly don't. This area needs housing, and it certainly needs affordable housing, and this project will provide that. Happy to answer any other questions you may have. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Just a question. The phase 2 was a requirement from the MND, or you did that on your own?
No, we did that just because of the former use of the site. Just to be clear that, as you may know, many properties only do a phase 1.
Yeah.
But because of the former use of the site, we did the phase 2 and we did the soil sampling.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Tina Choi Amy Aplicat.
Do I have a minute, Honorable Chairman?
Sure, you're part of the previous, you're part of the, it's not on my records here, but are you part of the, with the applicant?
Yes.
Okay, so you could have about 2 minutes
Okay.
the additional, there's some additional remaining time in the other 5 minutes, so you could have 2 minutes, yeah.
Thank you very much. Tina Choi, Englander, Kanabe Allen, 801 South Figueroa Suite, Suite 1050 LA. This project comes to you by way of extensive outreach that we've been doing since April of 2017. We have done over 6 meetings with the Neighborhood Council, which resulted in a support letter that we obtained from them in October 2017. And we have some notable residents that we've been working with in collaboration, including Ms. Janelle Traylor, who you'll hear from a little bit later today, representing 50 residents. We do have some residents around this area who have refused to collaborate with us. It's very difficult to work through volunteer conditions, et cetera, when, as Ms. Hunter stated, their kind of end game request is that we deed over our entire site to make it a public park. However, we have notable volunteer conditions that we've crafted with them, including we are dedicating 5,000 square feet of our front area of open space that we're going to be designing with the residents to create an urban pocket park. That's probably the one point that Susan Hunter and I agree on. There really is a poor inventory of urban space parks, and this is what my client is willing to dedicate and to contribute to the community. It will be designed with them, but maintained by us at our cost. We've also spent over $250,000 in doing outreach with the community, including extensive construction, information outreach, and mitigation outreach. We've also committed to clean up the surrounding area around our site, which is in disarray. And as you heard, the improvement of Hoover currently is substandard. It can't even accommodate a hammerhead turnaround with the fire department. So with our enhancement, it will also improve public safety initiatives and access to our site in the surrounding area. We've also committed to working with the LAPD to design a camera and lighting system. Currently, this area has over 20 identified gangs, so this is something of an enhancement for not just our site, but the surrounding area. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Amy Aplicat, Planning Deputy for Council Member Mitch O'Farrell of the 13th District. The applicant has worked very closely with the community in our office to transform the project and address concerns that have been raised. We are supportive of the project, which we feel will transform a blighted, deteriorated, empty hospital into a much-needed housing, including affordable housing project. Our office supports the denial of the appeal. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Shane Sakanoi, Camille Weiner, Eddie Wong. Pardon me?
We have to speak in the order that you...
No. Whoever comes up and gets the microphone first. And just to be clear, the applicant and the appellants each have 5 minutes. All other speakers have 1 minute. Welcome.
I'm a current resident of the neighborhood. City council members are allowing planning policies to be continuously ignored, affordable housing quotas to be waived, height limits breached, density inflated, and the interest of current residents to be ignored. The end result is substituting community for construction. We remain unaware if there is risk of short-term and long-term exposures to toxins in the soil and groundwater. Examples include dioxins, persistent organic pollutants, gross alpha particles, and heavy metals, all of which may be present and all of which may lead to birth defects and cancers upon exposure. The human health screening level is essentially the threshold for cancer risk. As state regulators don't calculate that risk, that math is up to private contractors. That is absurd. I have heard nothing about what happens once contamination upon disturbance might move towards residential housing, and nothing to build in a contingency if that does happen. We don't want to be another Jordan Downs 2.0.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Shane Sakanoi. I live at 240 North Hoover.
First of all, I want to submit this photos of a fire truck turning around at 240 at the edge of Hoover. And I also want to state, I don't know who this person is at all representing the community, Janelle, whoever she is, never seen her in my life. The project hasn't analyzed its impact on the traffic in the surrounding area, specifically where Hoover Street is bisected by a narrow alleyway. Since traffic studies don't utilize data apps like Waze or Google, Pinnacle wouldn't have analyzed the use of the alleyway as a through street. Traffic studies aren't created from scratch. For that particular project, developers purchase studies are already done for an area. There's a good reason to believe traffic studies didn't analyze the impact on the alleyway as a potential through street for traffic. This project would cause significant traffic problems in an area that not meant to handle sharp influx of vehicles. Pinnacle has not planned for the integration of additional vehicles, substantial accidents and pollution noise.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi. My name's Eric Shobeck. I live at 224 North Hoover Street, directly across.
I'm sorry, what was your name again?
Project.
What was your name again?
Eric Shobeck.
Okay.
My concern is I moved to the neighborhood because I liked this little green belt that they have in an adjacent area, and they plan to illegally give that property, which is public property, to one landowner and not the abating homeowners who have a stake. I'm only a homeowner, but I should also have a stake in that. It would be nice if we had a park, but I think they didn't communicate with us regarding that giveaway of land. I was told about 3 years ago that the city had already given it to the property owners by one of the employees by them, so it seems like deals were made ahead of time, and this Janelle girl does not represent us. I got signatures with the neighborhood. We were all opposed to it. I'm opposed to it.
Thank you. Jane Skylum, Juniper Herbst, Robert Herbst.
Start?
Yes, please go ahead.
The project is significantly too large for the area. This is a systematic and citywide issue, and city representatives are not adhering to their own policies when granting exemptions from city development rules on height, density, and overall size. We want to see developers fully assess the environmental impact of the proposed project on both its site and surrounding vulnerable neighborhoods. The tendency of commercial development has an enormous impact on natural and man-made environments. Pollution sources increase and cause contamination of air, water, and soil. Lack of correct planning and management strategies is concerning. Tools and measures must be adapted to evaluate and remedy the potential effects caused by such development projects as proposed by Pinnacle. Additionally, city officials should be focusing on strengthening park investment and supporting efforts focused on comprehensive neighborhood planning, which maintains safety and public value for surrounding vulnerable residential properties. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I start?
Yes. Welcome.
My name is Juniper, and I live across the street from Temple Hospital. When it was a hospital, I learned how to ride a bike in the parking lot there. I would want to make the hospital a park or a pool. I played baseball there. If there were an apartment building, I would want it to be a homeless shelter. We already have lots of cars, so I don't want to make us have any more. I just would like to say that my parents didn't make me have to go. I wanted to go to the meeting.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you.
I have some photographs to submit.
Yeah, Sergeant at Arms will get them from you. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Robbie Herbst. I'm a 20-year renter in the neighborhood. The current proposal is completely out of step with the neighborhood. As a 20-year resident renter here, I remember when the hospital was in use and know how 200 plus housing units and 400 more cars will impact this dense neighborhood. The hospital, which operated 9 to 5, brought few cars and provided a much-needed open space for the neighborhood after its hours. We have collected over 170 petitions in opposition to the plan as it currently is. The idea that the neighbors are happy with this collaboration is not false. If we were presented other options and other ways to view this development, we would greatly accept those. We have been fed one view of this, which is a developer's view, and we know that it's way too big. These are photographs that showing how traffic moved through the area.
Thank you. Kimberly Varela, and I'm not sure we called Eddie Wong already. Eddie Wong? I think we've called Eddie already. Janelle Traylor, welcome.
Thank you. So I'm Kimberly Varela. I'm also a 20-year resident of the neighborhood in Conversation. And I'm here simply to speak against the proposed development at the former Temple Community Hospital. Though it is very true that we have a housing crisis in Los Angeles, we do not have a luxury housing crisis. Our neighborhood does not need, nor does it desire, a luxury housing. What we need is more public space and safer streets. We are already a very condensed neighborhood. Our house sits directly next to, I think, a 20-unit building, which sits also next to a 40-unit building. Combined, that is still only a sixth of a size of what's being proposed in the former Temple Hospital. What perplexes me is why the new building can't be built in the same footprint as the former and the rest of the land be given to parking, and how about a park? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Janelle Traylor, and thank you very much for having us today so that we can be heard. I do represent 50 people across the street at 3420 Council Street as their manager for 10 years. And I actually, when we saw the hospital close a few years ago, we had a feeling that private developers would eventually come along. And this is the second private developer that we've met on this property. I worked with the first ones during filming, and they were atrocious to work with. But me and a lot of these neighbors got together last July when they came to RVNC and talked about their project. And we were hostile about what it was going to do to the neighborhood and the parking and all the issues that currently exist. I can't say that I represent the entire neighborhood, but of the 50 people in my building and of those that I've tried to outreach to via email about things that they've offered to help us with, like permitted parking, the ongoing issues that we've had with noise or cleanliness or security. I have an email here that's too long to read from one of my tenants about how continuing to collaborate is the most we can ask of these developers, and that they hope that there continues to be progress in that arena. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember, my name is Edie Wong. I've owned a piece of property on North Hoover Street for over 30 years. And I think the development's good, but there needs to be an orderly manner in developing this property, taking into consideration the air quality that my tenant have to breathe. I don't live there, but I'm concerned for them because they live there every day. And also, I've been paying taxes on the property that I own. If the city willy-nilly just give that property away to the developer, I don't think that's fair. That's stealing from me. And since, you know, it's supposed to be for the landowner of that street, and you're just giving it to the developer, I think you need to look into that and be fair to the people who have been paying taxes for the last 30 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jocelyn Gagan, or Gaga Rosenthal, Liana Wachtel.
Good afternoon. I'm here as a member of the Neighborhood Council Sustainability Alliance and its Environmental Health Committee, and I'm here to talk for the Trees Committee. I have expressed support for this project in the past and was a signatory of the Rampart Village Neighborhood Council. However, since becoming aware of the project's plan to remove 54 mature trees, mostly palm trees, I'm here to express alarm and concern about the negative impact on our LA urban forest. Would there be a way to build around the mature trees, or at the very least, ensure that these trees are replanted? Palm trees are iconic to LA, provide important habitat for birds, and of course, provide the carbon sequestration service that we really need from trees. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Ilana Wachtel, Coalition to Preserve LA. Just to echo what the last woman said, we're very concerned about the removal of the 54 mature trees. This will only increase the heat island effect in Los Angeles, causing higher energy costs and deaths from heat during heat waves, which we've been experiencing in the last couple weeks. Further, this project is being built near a freeway. They need trees to help clean the air and absorb the toxins from the cars that are being emitted into the air, and that young children and old people actually have lung damage from living next to a freeway. We would appreciate the consideration of saving these trees and saving our urban tree forest canopy. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments on this item? Looking at this appeal and recommendation from staff to deny the appeal, and it seems clear that the appeal points are not salient to the tract map approval, and also C13 is in support of moving forward. I would move that we deny the appeal. Any objections? Second. Any objections? Seeing none, so ordered. Thank you. Item number 8, please.
Item 8, Councilman, this is report from planning and an appeal by Elsa Gallant. It relates to the Director of Planning's clarification on 2 queue conditions.
Good afternoon, committee members. Jojo P. Wong with the Department of City Planning. Case before you is an appeal of the Director of Planning's queue clarification determination on ordinance number 185352, City Planning Commission case number CPC 2016-5001 VZCHD-CU-CUB-SPR that clarified queue conditions 2 and 3 of the grant in order to modify the approved plot plan to redistribute square footages of uses to accommodate a new grocery store tenant at the proposed Gateway at Lassen's Shopping Center. Staff recommends that Plum deny the appeal and sustain the decision of the Director of Planning to clarify the queue conditions. The appellant's appeal does not pertain to the narrow scope of the queue clarification and is largely directed at the overall project, which was previously adopted by the City Council on December 12, 2017. Staff is available if you have any questions.
Great. Thank you. So the appellant for this project.
Nicholas Brown. I am here to represent the appellant.
Okay.
I will discuss a portion of the appeal while there will be additional discussion by Ms. Barrett and identifying the significant impacts that are being caused by this project. I would like to, however, understand this because one of the first issues of the appeal is that this is not a proper hearing. I read the report by the representative. However, I would like to hear the Honorable City Attorney opine on, is this a proper hearing?
Well, you could finish with your comments, and then we'll decide if we ask that question.
I would like to just place into the record that we still believe that this is not a proper hearing. I do believe that if you were to use 1232D for the process, that is specifically discussing Planning Commission, which typically does provide an interested parties list. However, this is a director action that did not have a public hearing, and therefore no interested party list could have been created. through this process. And therefore, the only individuals that were identified were their interested parties list that the city created, which missed the adjacent properties. I also want to call your attention to one of the findings that's required in approval of this project that specifically discusses the need for the adjacent properties. The amendment or clarification would only have a minimal effect on adjacent property, would not result in significant impact or substantial deviation of the property rights of other property owners. This is very different from any other finding that must be made in any other type of discretionary action. I would say per se that adjacent property owners are automatically interested parties who were not notified of this hearing. As for the actual issues that are before you, there is a purpose that we need to consider in this. And if you go to the original staff report that was used to adopt the clarification of Q conditions, it states, this is for a change in circumstances which were impossible to consider in the original consideration of the case that occurred subsequent to the original action. I would suggest to you that this exactly is the type of circumstance we are talking about. What's most important, though, is what is before you to make as a finding. And that finding says that the amendment or clarification is necessary in order to carry the intent of the City Council in adopting the T or Q. We will tell you that it is possible that this applicant will not be able to clear the T. And by the way, it's not just a T condition, it is actually a condition of the environmental review. It's a CEQA issue too. And the reason why they may not be able to clear that will be explained in just a moment of the traffic difficulties, because this applicant will need to get the approval, discussed and get the approval of the adjoining property, and that is a requirement of the T condition, that there be a covenant agreement with the adjoining property. Now, so I just want to conclude, and I just want to say that basically there are three things in planning that we must consider here, and that is hindsight, insight, and foresight. What this applicant or appellant has done is brought you the foresight that this is a condition that may not be cleared. So why do we have a process now and a process later? Because the revised plans. So we suggest that we just take 2 weeks, take a pause, and have some discussion and come back to you in 2 weeks, and then we can tell you where we're at on whether this should be approved or not. Thank you.
Thank you. And on this side of, you have 1 minute and 21 seconds left if you want anybody else to finish up that time. Go right in.
I'll speak quickly and succinctly. I can say what I need to say in 1 minute and 21 seconds.
What's your name?
Barrett. I'm representing my mother, Elsa Gallant, owner of building at 9719 and 9721 Mason Avenue. I have handouts. I do not know if they were circulated. We are happy to get them circulated. There are easements that allow the semi-trucks to access the loading docks of these surrounding industrial buildings that have been there approximately 4 to 5 decades. Our building has been in my family for 4.5 or so decades. There's a 30-foot easement off of Mason, which is a major street. There's a 20-foot easement behind the buildings where several buildings have loading docks. So in order for the semi-trucks to access these loading docks, they have to queue up and take turns. And if somebody is loading in the 20-foot easement, which comprises the western boundary of the proposed build, which we're not against the proposed build, we clearly have safety concerns with the southern boundary and portions of the western boundary. If a truck is unloading, it shuts down use of the 20-foot easement behind the buildings because there is not enough room to pass that truck. When trucks are loading into the building behind us, which is technically 9732 Cozy Croft, their loading dock goes directly onto. Can I continue for 30
You could finish here. Yes, you could
Their
finish.
loading dock goes directly onto the 20-foot easement. If a truck pulls up there, it blocks the entire 20-foot easement and portions of the 30-foot easement. So their trucks park parallel to where the proposal has parking spaces, and they unload with a forklift back and forth across the western boundary, the 20-foot easement. There are serious safety concerns because these semis are pulling forward and backing up and turning around where there's proposed new usage of commercial consumer vehicles. And that's very concerning. There's also an ingress and egress for the fast food restaurant that's been proposed, with the exit directly facing our parking area, which we cannot separate or segregate out. So what we're looking at is if we change the usage of these easements, you're going to have semi-trucks queued on Mason Boulevard, Mason Avenue, and potentially Superior. There will be nowhere else for them to go.
Thank you. Thank you. Now we will turn to the applicant. Brad Rosenheim, I believe, is the representative. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, committee members. My name is Brad Rosenheim, 21600 Oxnard Street in Woodland Hills. I'm here today on behalf of HRI Development, which is the applicant of the subject property. I'd like to thank staff for their thoroughness throughout this process, which has been ongoing for several years. The appeal before you today, as written by the appellant, constitutes two issues. One is the lack of adequate notice of the original hearing, not the hearing that's the item before you today, and also the alleged impacts of the project on the easement between the two properties. Now, this easement is a 30-foot easement split between the two properties, the applicant and the appellant. As to the notification, I think it has been confirmed by all the record that the appellant was notified of the original hearing. Also, in relation to this clarification, the determination by the director was sent out, I believe it was to a 300-foot radius, so there were a number of people who were notified of this clarification that was sought. As to the easement, it is not a city easement. This is a private easement between two abutting property owners. This easement is memorialized in a 1961 grant deed, and it provides for access through the property. It is not under the jurisdiction of the city, as I said. It is for shared egress and ingress, and it has no other limitations as to the use of the adjacent properties, as to the amount, type, or location of access to that easement by those abutting properties. As far as truck access goes, I understand the comments of the appellant. One of the things that may resolve the issue is having the appellant no longer allow cars to park on that easement, which would allow for a smoother flow of traffic. The appeal before you addresses the case before you addresses a very specific issue. That clarification is simply a very slight reallocation of the floor area that was originally approved by the Los Angeles City Council. And as you know, those approvals get into some very significant detail. As the project evolved after, with tenants becoming interested in the site, we sought a very, very slight reduction or modification in the allocation of that square footage. It has nothing to do with the site plan. That was approved by the City Council quite some time ago. Now, the appellant has an obligation on an appeal, and that is to demonstrate that the decision maker erred or abused his discretion. There is no evidence at all provided to the record to this effect. In fact, the appellant addresses issues that are only related to the original approval that's not at issue today. Mr. Brown expressed some concern about the ability to clear conditions. I just want to tell you that over the past half a dozen months plus, the applicant has been clearing conditions. All conditions are now cleared through the applicable departments. So the concern expressed has been addressed by the city staff as part of that clearance. For these reasons, we would respectfully request that you deny this appeal today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Gregory Crisp, Janelle Traylor.
Hello, I'm Gregory Crisp. My family and I own the building at 9711 and 9713 Mason, and we lease from the Barrett and Glunt families the half of the building to our immediate north, and we are immediately south of the subject and proposed project. There were references made to notices, and I would just point out that while this hearing relates to a specific and limited circumstance regarding the project, that I've queried all of the surrounding industrial property owners, and no one has ever received a notice related to this project. And we've been occupying that building for 16 years. Our neighbor to the south has been occupying his for 18 years. The people across from us have been occupying their buildings for many years as well, all of them within 300 feet of the subject project. May I have just 20 or 30 more seconds?
Yes, sir.
Okay. While it is not the subject of this hearing, there is clearly a conflict in the traffic patterns that could not have been addressed adequately in the traffic study. And I submit that it's an issue that requires consideration. And I'm not sure whether that will occur here or be adjudicated later, but it needs attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Janelle Traylor?
Right, Mr. Crisp, while you're still here, Mr. Crisp, can I ask you a question? You said you queried all the
Yes.
adjacent property owners
Yes.
and or tenants. They
Correct.
should actually be the owners of record, not, I think, the tenants who are served. But,
They were owners of record.
okay, so I had a question for you.
They were not tenants.
Yeah, did you have, and I know you've talked to my office as well about this, did you submit anything in writing on how you conducted that? Or did they sign something, an affidavit to such effect?
No, but I'm glad to provide that to you
I'm
within a matter of
just
days.
asking if we were, well, today's the hearing, so I was asking.
I understand.
Did
but
okay.
I learned of this hearing several days ago and drove
Understood.
down from up north to attend.
Got it. Okay.
And had very limited time.
Thank you.
And this is
Okay.
the only hearing we were notified of.
Understood. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Janelle Traylor, right here. Okay, that concludes our public comment on this item. Mr. Englander?
A couple of things. One is, and while I think the arguments have been made by both the applicant and the appellant that this hearing today, from the arguments that were brought up, are really not under the purview and the direction of this body today and what's been agendized and what's before us. Having said that, there were some other arguments that were made and presented and suggested. I want the city attorney, if they could weigh in on some of those in terms of notification, and also I think Mr. Brown brought up one particular question at the beginning of his opening statement as well. And so if you could just address a couple of those points.
Adrian Corsani, City Attorney's Office. Well, the code section that we're operating under is 1232H regarding clarifications of conditions or of Q classifications or limitations. The notice provided is, as Mr. Rosenheim had stated, 300 feet of the exterior boundaries of the property involved. It seemed like the confusion was with the notice that was provided for the earlier hearing, perhaps on the zone issues, which isn't the hearing that we're having today. My understanding is that the department has looked into the notice matter in more detail and can speak to the specifics of it better than I can, but from my conversations with them and review of the code, it doesn't appear that we're having a notice problem under this particular section.
Okay, we'll come back to that with the department then. The other question specifically was on the easement, and it was addressed that this is an easement between two private property owners, and then the exhibits that were submitted showing possible conditions that could occur based on the planning and design for the truck and the vehicular traffic also appear to be existing issues, because these are current photos, not just on the future rendering. So if the department can weigh in on the jurisdiction of that, and if those were looked into, if there's anything significant there, and just weigh in on that.
Judge Appice, City Planning Staff. That's correct. The easement is not within the jurisdiction of the City of Los Angeles. It's a matter between private property owners, and as applicant stated, the grant deed does just speak to ingress and egress access for the easement and doesn't really touch on anything else. Regarding the notification, the original CPC case was notified to the 500-foot boundary, as we have some affidavits in the file to that effect. This Q clarification was mailed out, the decision letter was mailed out to a 300-foot radius as identified in the code, and property owners within the 300 feet should have received the letter and subsequently were able to file an appeal if they so chose. And
All right, I think I had addressed all of those issues that were brought up, so I appreciate that. And I just want to reiterate again that this project was approved back in 2017, and the director's action being appealed is in regards to the clarification related to the minor adjustments and the square footage amongst the uses. So all of which those were observed within the original cap of the square footage. The appeal hearings on the aspect of the original project, which is not, again, before this committee. So based on that information and the information that was just updated and provided by staff, as well as the issues that were brought up in notification and as well as the easement, I would request a denial of the appeal. With that also, I want to add that this, I actually want to, while it may or may not be appropriate, compliment the applicant for extensive outreach with even the local community, taking a very tired and dilapidated property and working with not only the tenant relocation and the folks that were there for many, many, many years and extending various time periods, but also working with the city to provide public safety resources both on the site and upon approval of the project. So we truly appreciate that public-private partnership and what's being proposed, and as well as cleaning up the site. So thank you all for that, and that's what I would ask.
Thank you. Mr. Englander has moved to deny the appeal. Any objections to that? Seeing no objections, so ordered. Okay, thank you very much. Our next item is public comment. Carl Pierosi, not here. That concludes the items on the agenda. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.